It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Wednesday, February 28th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. Now today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Health is Happiness, Bible history word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing and how is your week going? Yes, it is Wednesday already. We're in the middle of the week. I hope you guys have enjoyed your week thus far. Don't forget, tomorrow we have Q&A Thursday. Get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, leave a like and comment for today's video as we build our community together. Just very happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is, It is the History of the 1,000-Year Wedding Banquet, and I will repay you according to your deeds. All right, guys. It is Wednesday. It is the middle of the week, and I am on a crazy schedule right now. It's not even a crazy busy schedule, to be honest. Today, what did we do? I came and picked them up at around 11:30. We went out to go eat lunch together. Went out to the church. We went to play. We played some card games. We played frisbee. Went out to eat with the newcomers, and then after that, went to McDonald's for some ice cream, played some cards, and then took them home. And then now I've just, I've gotten back home. I've washed up everything else, talked to a member over here too. And then it's like 12:45 a.m. and I'm finally recording this. It's really hard because the schedule I'm putting myself on right now is like I'm recording so late because it's busy. I'm not sure when it started, but I'd get home really late, I'd record, and then the next morning I'm just exhausted. And, I get myself ready to go to pick them up in the morning once again, and then the day starts all over, and I never get a chance to record until much, much later. But I'm hoping that I will be able to do it earlier. I'm hoping, guys, so just, pray for me that I can do this. But yeah, it's like 12:45 a.m. at this moment, and I'm recording. I'm happily recording, though, so I'm not begrudgingly like, oh, I got to do this. It's just that it's been a very long day. Super excited and happy, but I hope that you guys will enjoy today's podcast too. Whew. So, it's the middle of the week. We got Wednesday service tonight. Hope you guys are going to enjoy that too. I only have 2 more days left, and then I'll take them to the airport, and then no more guests for at least, from what I know thus far, the next guest won't come until June or July, which is great, right? So it makes me happier too. But for me, it's also just, I'm really happy to be hanging out with the guys too. It's so different, so chilled and relaxed. Like, it's weird because I'm a guy. So when the guys are together, we're completely like, we'll spend 2 hours playing a card game. And this is not something that's like uncommon. Last time it was just 4 of us guys that went over to Bangkok, Thailand. 4 of us went over. Guess what, guys? We're playing cards. We're gambling, like, loser has to pay for McDonald's or whatever it is like this too. But it's just fun when it's all guys. It's so what's the right word? Simple. Maybe that's the word. It's simple. There's nothing too complicated that needs to happen. There's nothing, whatever we do, it's kind of like, cool. All right, cool. All right, I'll do that. All right, that's fine. Sounds good. Like every answer is that, right? As long as we eat well and we're like playing some kind of games, or we have our time like kind of tied up in busyness and stuff like that too. But it's great. It's great to just hang out with the guys. Not saying it's any better, but there's better parts about hanging out with with all the guys, and when it's mixed with girls and stuff like that too. It's just a difference, right? And I'm thankful because I'm just eating way too much, guys. I'm eating way too much. I heard this funny thing from a friend of mine in Taiwan and her uncle. Well, not really an uncle. An uncle, like, it's her dad's friend, which in Taiwan or in Chinese culture, they're all called uncle. Like, I'm called uncle here, Uncle Sky sometimes too. But this uncle, like, studies feng shui and fortunes and stuff like that. And my friend was, like, really excited. And she was telling me, like, guess what? People born in 1978, which is me, are going to have good fortune. And I'm like, whoa, that's kind of cool. But then it wasn't that. He's like, people born in 1978 are going to have good fortune from 2024. So right now, this year is going to be good fortune for 1978, people born in 1978 for the next 20 years. And I was like, whoa, that's so crazy. And I was kind of like, yes, like this is going to be my next 20 years kind of thing. And even though I don't really believe in fortune telling and, like, the feng shui, I don't fully believe it. I think MBTI is kind of a joke in my, like yeah. Some of you guys may be like, what? We believe in MBTI so much. And it's, like, popular in Korea right now. But one thing just to make you guys really think about how accurate or how good MBTI is, when people study psychology, they never study the MBTI. It's not even studied by psychologists or sociologists. None of them study it, right? If it was that big, it would be studied by, like, all these researchers. But they said the one that's closest to is the big 5 traits. Like, that is the one that is, like, comes with at least good backed data. Right? So I'm not into that stuff at all. Blood types, not into it. Even though I agree that God made blood types for a reason, and there's a difference in these blood types, and I do think there's going to be difference in general characteristics and stuff. So generally, I think some of it, like, generally it is true, but not, like, very detailed. But for me, when I hear someone say that, like, something that's a blessing for me, I just accept it. I was like, yes, right? Even though I don't believe it, I was just happy to hear that, some good fortune was coming my way. And it's so interesting because I don't believe in it, but I'll take any good news as real news right now. So everyone, if you want some good fortune, you know who to hang around, right? You got to hang around people from 1978, which kind of made me think very interesting too. If 1978 for the next 20 years, which means until 2044, which would make me 66 at that time. One thing that I find very interesting is, well, if you kind of think about it, Providence was born in 1978. So if Providence was born in 1978, it could be a good sign that for the next 20 years, it's going to be some good fortune going around. So I'm super, super happy and thankful about that too, right? So that's something that kind of, it made my day much more happier, for sure. Okay, so today I played, it was very interesting because we played Frisbee today, and I haven't played Frisbee in over a year and a half, right? And I'm not really in shape as I should be, and I can't throw as well as I did before, but, we started playing, and man, it was tough. Like, we had 6-on-6, and it was just a struggle on both sides. Like, no one scored the first point until, like, 10 minutes in. Like, we were dropping passes, bad throws, all these things. It was just really, really bad, right? So finally, our team scored, and then we scored again. So it was 2-0 for us. And then they scored twice, and it was just kind of like this back and forth lopsided. It was like 2-2. And then I thought to myself, it's like, all right, so, we need to, re-strategize. So we kind of got together. We talked about what's the best strategy, right, for the rules we have for this game. And once we made this new strategy adjustment, we just scored the next 6 points in a row. It was like 8-2. And we were just crushing the other side. And all it was basically us doing just a minor adjustment. It was a minor adjustment. And that completely blew the game up. And I looked at that, I was like, wow, it's so interesting. Like, when, Sunsteam says that sports is life, right? Soccer is life. You can see life through sports. You can see life through our attitude, the way we think, the way we are. And as I was looking, as we were doing this new strategy, the thing that's so cool is that it's the exact same people. It's the exact same skills. We were 2-2. We were struggling the entire time. But right when we got a new strategy, we didn't change anything except the strategy, and it started to work. And that really, really makes me think about, oh, you know what? That's something we really have to understand too is think about Providence too. We have the exact same people running. We have the exact same people going out surveys and evangelizing, doing all these things all the time, right? We do these things all the time. We have the exact same manpower, the exact same people doing all the work. But just like in that game, it was just change the strategy, right? Change the way you do it, and you're going to be that much more successful. Like the difference between changing our strategy and before, it was night and day, where we're struggling and struggling, scoring, not scoring, scoring and not scoring, and eventually it comes to changing the strategy, and all of a sudden we score 6 in a row, it's 8-2, and the other side is like quite demoralized and stuff like that too, right? It was really, really interesting, right? And I was like, yeah, in the same way, when it comes to us too doing and trying to find successes in life also, we really have to be those that should be able to adjust, and we should be able to change the way that we see or do things so that we can be successful. We can't change the people, right? This is it. People in Providence, we are the people that are running, right? So we can't change that. But what can we change? We can change how we do things. And I think that is something that we really have to think about, especially when it comes to evangelism now. This is a year of prayer. Change the way you pray. This is the year of the word. Change the way you listen to the word or how you take notes or whatever it is. But especially when it comes to evangelism, a lot of us are going to think to ourselves is, man, it's too hard to evangelize. We've been through too much trauma last year. But when you look at what happened in the early Christian church, they were in the worst persecution, yet they grew the most during that time. And that is something that we have to start thinking about ourselves too, is what can we do differently? What can we change in our mindset, our perception that will change us, right? That will change the way we do, that will change the success of how we are, right? And if we go even further in it, I was talking to someone too right after the game, and they were telling me they were on the other team that they got crushed 8-2, right? But they were like, oh, I don't have the energy to take care of these people who are struggling or who are having bad mentality or bad attitude because they're losing. There's not enough communication. All these things came up, and the thing that's quite interesting is. I think one of the things that we're not very good at, just say in Providence in general, it feels like we're not going for what is most successful. We're just going for what is the easiest, the lowest hanging fruit right now. They would be I was talking to the other person on the team. They're like, oh, we just want to have fun. And I'm like, yeah, but especially when you're playing sports, half the fun is winning. That's half the fun right there is winning, right? Or having a close game, or and part of a big chunk of the fun is winning. A big chunk of the fun is doing well, right? These are all parts of having fun, and I think that's a big difference. Remember, I talked about this before. Is that when they did the studies on boys and girls when they're playing games, guys are the ones looking for they have set rules, and there's a clear winner and a loser, where with the girls it's more about the relationship. And it was very interesting because they were more concerned about, oh, are the newcomers okay? Are they okay? Right? And in my head I was gonna say they're not okay because they just got killed. You know what I mean? And the newcomers are all guys. 5 newcomers are all guys. I'm they're not okay because they lost. It's not about, whether they had fun or not. For a guy, it's a clear winning and losing. And guys don't want to lose. We have that pride, right? And it was interesting that the girls were thinking more about were they having fun or not, and the guys are thinking about how can we win. And I think we need both of them. Right? We really, really need both of them. And I think this is where leadership plays such a big role. It really does. Leadership is such a big thing when you look at churches, when you look at countries, when you look at Providence, when you look at your work, look at your teams at work, look at your school, group leaders, look at your family. Leadership plays such a huge role, and we don't really I don't think we really comprehend how big that really is. Because I would say this. One of the things that leaders do is leaders make the tough decisions. That's one of the things leaders have to do. Leaders will never make 100% happy. They can't. It's impossible because everyone is different. Like even if you look at when you do presidential elections, it's usually 51 to 49%. Like that's how close all the elections really are. And because it's that close, it means that whoever won still has 49% of the population that were against them. You know what I mean? A leader's the one making the hard decisions. A leader's not making everyone happy. And I think it is really, really impossible for a leader to make everyone happy. Like, imagine it comes down to, in a church, do you want to have zero evangelism, but, everyone's taken care of really well? Do you think everyone would be happy with that? And the answer is probably not. There's going to be that group is like, yeah, we're kind of happy, except how come there's no evangelism going on? You know what I mean? And then on the flip side is you have tons of evangelism going on. Tons of evangelism. But you don't have, people are not taken care of inside the church. Both are terrible situations, right? They're really, really bad. Like both of them are. Like you'd want to have a balance of both where both sides are getting a bit of each, right? There is like a compensation, right? There's a compromise in between two where both sides can say that they're somewhat happy. And I think leadership, one of the hardest things a leader can do is make everyone happy. And I think that's one of the worst things a leader should be aiming for, is trying to make everyone happy. I think that's a bad goal to have, right? And I think that's something that we really have to consider and say, okay, guys, so, what should the leader be doing? Well, if it's a sport, having good sportsmanship will go a long way, except if you get crushed in a game and you lose really badly. No one's happy about that. Right? And, so it's kind of like the leadership is a balancing act where you're trying to figure out what is most important at this time, what is most important at that time. Because at one time, it could be about taking care of members. And at another time, it's really about evangelism or bringing more people into this history. Right? And I do think it's something that we have to think about even for ourselves. Right? A lot of times we have to become leaders of ourselves. And what does that mean? There's a lot of times where you have to be crazy spiritual, right? It's the time to be spiritual, but there's also a time that we need to be and take care of the physical things too, right? Like imagine having $0 in your account and all you do is run, but you should be getting a part-time job. Right? And it's not a bad thing. Imagine, look at them. If you're just running, you're not a head leader, you're not a assistant leader, you're not a department leader, you're just running full time and you're on campus and the church doesn't really give you much, right? But you can't expect, just say that, oh, well, they only give me this, so I'm going to live off this, when it's impossible. No, what we have to do is to understand, even about ourselves, when we lead ourselves well, there are times that we need to be way more spiritual, and there's times we need to be way more physical. It's just the situation, the circumstance that we always have to be discerning where we are right now. And when we can discern this really well, then we're able to lead ourselves understanding that, hey, I'm doing what is the right thing for my situation. And guess what? It might not be what everyone else thinks is right, but no one knows my situation better than I do. Right? So I think that's something that's really, really important. And it was just interesting because I haven't played this Ultimate Frisbee in a long time. And when I was playing, it was just very interesting. It was so clear what was going on, changing strategies, seeing the other side, people having bad attitudes or people being down on themselves because they're losing. But I don't know if you guys agree with me on this. But one of the things that Sunseem said when I was training the volleyball team in the Lord's Church, when I was training them, we were winning. We were constantly winning, right? And, we were cheering for each other. We were winning. We would put ourselves in pressure situations. I would be very, very difficult in practices too. And people would be like, oh my gosh, it was kind of scary kind of thing, right? And I think I told you this before, but people wrote letters to Sunseam saying I was too scary, right? That, the ball's being hit at us too hard. It's so scary. And Sunseam's reply was, you want to know what's really scary? Go to war. When I went to Vietnam, I had bullets coming at me. That is really scary, right? So, part of the things that we're learning, especially I believe when it comes to life through sports, we need to learn how to control ourselves in defeat. Like everyone can win, right? When you win, everyone's happy. But I think the defeat, putting yourselves in a position when you're in defeat and how you handle yourself in the defeat, I think is a very, very fundamental and important thing in life. We need to learn. We've got to learn how to lose. Because when it's okay to be competitive, but I do think we really, really have to learn how to lose. Right? And I think it's something that, we all have, especially from children from a very, very young age, they need to learn it. Because if they don't learn it, they become very sensitive to loss, very sensitive to people criticizing them, getting negative feedback and stuff like that too, which means that you basically can't handle life itself if you can't handle those things. So, that is something I do think that we need to learn how to handle these things really well, right? Where the leader of the team that loses, I think that's an even more important time than when you win. When you win, everyone's happy. But as a leader, when you lose, as a leader of yourself, when you're not doing well, when something bad happens, you have to lead yourself well, right? And I think that's a very, very important lesson we all need to learn. And I think Jordan Peterson said it once. He said that when children learn and start to play with other children, they fall over, they trip, right? And they hurt themselves, and they need to learn to get back up. They need to learn resilience, right? If they don't learn it when they're playing with other friends and they're putting themselves in social context, social situations, once they learn that really well, then as they grow up, they can handle more difficult situations even better too. Right? So I think it's something that we have to, it's a learning thing that all of us have to do really well. Okay? All right. So I want to go over a very interesting topic because I was talking to a member and it was a very, very interesting conversation. Okay? And I'm going to tell you guys, it has to do with money, right? So I don't want people to misunderstand. I'm more thinking about, let's just get into it, okay? So they were telling me that some people don't want to support me on Patreon, mainly because they think that I'm eating too well, or I am, drinking too much coffee, or I'm living the good life already, okay? So I thought about this. I was like, oh, that's that's a very interesting way to look at it, right? So I would say that my first thought was like, oh, that's weird. But then I thought to myself but you know what? Everyone's going to be in a different situation, right? And everyone has every right to do whatever they want with their own money, with their own thoughts, right? And I wanted to get your thoughts on what you thought about this. For instance, supporting someone, would you support someone based on what you thought they needed? Which means that if you think that they had enough, then you're not going to support them because they have enough. Or are you more on the side of if someone provides a service, work, or product that I want or need, then I'm going to support it. You know what I mean? Right? Because there's two sides to it. And I'm not going to say that any side of this is wrong because money has to do with, it's about your money, right? And you can do whatever you want with your own money, right? Which also is speaking about me too, is I can do whatever I want with my money. I can buy coffee if I want. I can eat good food if I want to, right? Because it's my money kind of thing, right? It's what I've earned. So when you earn money, you're able to do what you want with it. Now, of course, if I was going into massive debt and stuff, that's a completely different story, but I'm not, right? So here's the thing. What side would you be on? Are you more on the side of, hey, I want people have enough. And the only question that I would bring up is, how much is enough? Like, have you guys ever thought about that? Like, how much is enough? And it becomes super subjective, because what is enough for one person is not enough for another, right? What is enough for one person to, for themselves is like a third of what another person wants. Like, having enough is super subjective from person to person, right? And I think that is something that we really need to, that's something that people have to think about. Like, yeah, does it matter if someone has enough? So that if someone has enough, there's no point in supporting them? And I would be like, it would depend. If they're just getting money for no reason, then that's different, right? But if they're providing, like they're working for the church, they are preaching, they're doing this or that, and is it better to just give to them what you think is enough? Or is it better for us to provide for them because they're giving the service? Like, I'll tell you this one situation that I've been through before, and I think I had the wrong thinking in the past. Like, churches didn't have a lot of money in the past. And a lot of times when I was head leading too, our church wasn't rich, right? But we had someone who was working for the church, and they should be getting paid, but they didn't get paid because they made a lot of money, right? They were working a full-time job. So they didn't get paid even though they're doing the work. And I thought to myself is like, yeah, that makes sense back then. But I thought to myself is, no, that doesn't make any sense, because if we think about it from a real world perspective, how many people would actually do that? Imagine you have a job and you make really, really good money. And you said, you know what? I want to make even more money. So you take a second job. But the second job says to you, oh, we heard you're working at this company making a ton of money. So what we're going to do is we're not going to pay you for this job because you make too much in your other job. Would you work there? And you'd be like, no way. You get paid for the work that you do, right? Isn't that the fairest way? Kind of like you get according to what you have done. It doesn't matter if you have $10 million in your account and someone has $5 in their account. You get paid for the work that you do. Wouldn't that be the right or the best way to think about it? Right? And I thought to myself is like, yeah, that's so true. And it even brought me to that next, my next type of thinking was, well, when you look at, like, say, full-timers, right? If you look at people working full-time, what do you think is what do you think is enough money for, like, say, a head leader? What's enough for a head leader? And we could say to ourselves is, well, enough is like, we need real numbers. But then you would need numbers that kind of like people can actually say yes or no to. So let me tell you guys this. Do you think giving head leaders minimum wage is enough? Yes or no? Like, you could answer this in your head. Or what about less than minimum wage? Do you think that's good? What about the average in the country? Or the industry average in the country? Or more than the average or industry average in the country? Which one do you think would be better? Right? And I'm a firm believer that how we treat the head leader and such is a big indicator of like how people on the outside are going to look at us. Because if the head leader is poor, the head leader doesn't have everything, I would look, I'd be embarrassed as a member of the church if the head leader was poor. If the head leader couldn't get new clothes, right? If the head leader couldn't, just get the basics and stuff, and they're struggling with these things, I would be embarrassed. And I would say we got to give at least an industry average, in my opinion. It could be a little bit lower, but at least an industry average. Like, there's no way in my mind that if a church had enough money, remember, we're talking about churches that are much bigger and that have enough money, there's no way that the head leader should be getting paid, well, God forbid, under minimum wage. But I would say that would be quite embarrassing if the head leader was getting paid minimum wage. I find that very embarrassing, right? In a church that had the means, I would say they would need to get at least the industry average, right? And that's just in my opinion, right? Something that I would feel comfortable with. Like, guys, think about this. Would any of you, before the spiritual Oppenheimer happened last year, let's pretend none of it happened. Would any of you say, oh, no way, KJS is 10,000 is way too much for her? Or would you be like, no, she deserves it? Right? Would it be more of according to the work that is being done? Like, I would say the difference between like me being on YouTube providing MSD is I provide a service and I provide like a product of these podcasts, and I provide this. It's essentially free. There is no one has to support on Patreon. Zero, right? And I don't expect people to support Patreon and stuff like that too. I don't, right? However, the way the system works is basically if you feel that the service that you're being provided with is worthy and it's something that you're constantly listening to all the time, then it's going to be like, oh, okay, then it's something where people will be compelled or they would be inspired to support, right? And this is a completely different model because the YouTube model, social media model is completely different. But if we were to talk in the real world, right, people get paid according to the jobs that you get, the industry that you're in, and what's the industry average and stuff like that too. So I thought, this is a very, very interesting, a bunch of questions that came up from this. And I hope it's something that makes us think too, that we're living in this physical realm. And we should be thinking about our leaders. We should be thinking about ourselves. We should be thinking about how we think when it comes to the things and how we use our money, but we don't become like hypocritical in it, where we can take a service and not pay for it. But if you were in the situation, you would want to get paid. You know what I mean? Like, oh, if it's me, I'll definitely do it. Like, I'll definitely get paid for it. But, oh, if it's someone else, no, they shouldn't be getting paid. Like, that would be the thing I would say would be more contradictory. But I thought it was a very interesting mental exercise to go through. But, there is one thing that I do understand is a lot of people, we've heard from some people saying that head leaders and full-timers shouldn't be given too much money or they'll not focus on God enough, right? And that's true, right? But then again, it goes back to what is too much money? How much is too much money? Right? KJS getting paid $10,000 per month. Is that too much money? Or is it you'd be satisfied with it because of the work that she was doing? Right? How much is too much? Right? So very, very interesting questions. I hope it kind of comes up where you guys can think about it too. And you guys can say, oh, I agree or I disagree with this. Either way. Okay? So there it is, guys. That is today's segment number 1. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. Before we get into today's second segment, which is, today's second segment is what? Second segment is, the Bible history word study. Before we get into that, I'm gonna play that song again from the Sierra Leone Church called "Thanks Be to the Holy Trinity."
Yeah, Providence history represents Sierra Leone, West Africa.
On the mix.
Since the day that I met this history, my spirits became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I know one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you. I just wanna say thank you. Since the day that I met this history, my spirits became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I know one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you.
We give thanks and praise to the Holy Trinity and the one sent in this history of providence. We empty our thoughts and we receive all the words that is stronger than the rod and sharper than the sword. In the fight it like a battle, like a lion in the jungle, not stopping at the middle, but we take it to the ending. The word that will make us fly like an eagle. We are overwhelmed with joy with our body, soul and spirit, cause it's true word of God that is giving us joy. Every night and day we are seeking the Lord, moreover taking action resembling the Lord and spreading it in the world.
Since the day that I met this history, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I'm the one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Since the day that I met this history, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I'm the one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Is your history, is a history, providence history, came to me like a mystery. Is your history, is a history, providence history, came to me like a mystery. Since the day that I came to Providence, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my dreams come true. And the ones that I said the greatest condition for making everything new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. We just wanna say thank you, thank you.
Since the day that I met this history, my spirit became brand new. Thanks be to the Holy Trinity for making my whole life new. I'm the one said I said the greatest condition for making my whole life new. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I just wanna say thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
And that is an amazing and awesome song from the church over there in Sierra Leone in West Africa. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. That would thanks be to the Holy Trinity. All right, so let's get into our second segment for today, which is the word study. And we're going to go into continuing every Wednesday on the Bible history word study. And we did finish off in the middle of Genesis chapter 6. We ended off in verse 8, so we're going to move on to verses 9 and 10 first. Okay, so Genesis chapter 6, 9, and 10, we're going into the story of the flood. Okay, so one of the things that we do have to understand is when the flood came, one of the biggest reasons, like the big picture reason why they're doing this is because of what God wants to do is to restart history, restarting the Eden, right? So the flood comes and wipes out everyone, so there must be a restart of Eden. So once again, God has to choose a new central figure or a new Adam and a new Eve. And one of the ways that we know that this was a restart of Eden, restoration of Eden, is that in Genesis chapter 9, verse 2, what happens? Basically, the exact same thing God said to Adam and Eve, which is, be fruitful, multiply and subdue the earth. And in Genesis chapter 9, verse 2, he says the exact same three great blessings that we learned from the purpose of creation lesson, right? Once the flood is done, basically they get the exact same blessing as God gave to Adam and Eve, which means that there is a restarting that is happening, right? And this is why it was that important to restart. Since it all started with the fall, all mankind was wicked and evil in their hearts to the point that God had to start all over again, right? In chapter 6, okay? Let's move to verse 13. So what does God say? God says he's going to end put an end to all people. Basically, doomsday, last days, end times, apocalyptic message. Everything's going to end. But of course, one thing that we do know when you read the rest of the Bible is this type of apocalyptic language was used everywhere in the Bible. It wasn't just in the time of Noah. And we understand the use of perspective in the Bible also. Perspective of the people that are writing, the people at that time with the knowledge that they had. So one of the big perspectives that we can see, a couple of verses we know is like Genesis chapter 41 verse 57, basically says that the whole world was going through a famine and they all came to Joseph in Egypt. And we all know that is untrue, but that is coming from the perspective of the people at that time. In Acts chapter 24, verse 5, all the way to the New Testament, they said that Jesus was stirring riots with Jews all over the world. What world is it? Not literally the entire world. The world known to man at that time, which was the Roman Empire, right? And that's why this is one of the biggest reasons why we look at this case for understanding the flood as a regional flood is the perspective is much different than what we think. So, one thing that we also have to understand also is that God also speaks to people according to the level of their knowledge, all right? So a couple of big hints that come from chapter 7. Is it chapter 6 or 7? Chapter 6, right? Verse 15, basically there's the actual size of the ark, which is 450 by 75 by 45 feet. Okay, so we get the actual dimensions of the ark. Why is this important? It's important because with these dimensions, we should be able to calculate what actually fits inside that ark, right? If you have a cup that's 6 ounces, you can't have 6.1 ounces. It's just going to fit 6 ounces, right? And the reason why it's so important for us to understand the dimensions of the ark is because it allows us to think about, hold on a second, what actually is fitting in the ark? And if you look at verses 19 and 21, which is 2 of every animal, and not just 2 of every animal, all types of foods must go into the boat too. On top of that, when you go to chapter 7, verses 1 through 3, it's not just 2 of every animal, it's 7 of every clean animal. So it's not just 2 of every kind, it's also 7 of every clean animal. So it's much more than we think, right? So now we're going into chapter 7. Now, we're going to jump up to verse 11. And verse 11 talks about how long the waters actually came, okay? And in verse 11, it says that it started when Noah was 600 years old on the 2nd month of the 17th day, which means February 17th, okay? When did it end? Well, that's in chapter 8, verse 3 and 4, and it says the waters stopped, the inundation stopped when Noah was 601 years old, and it was the 5th month and the 17th day, which means exactly 5 months have passed by, 150 days, right? So let me just go over the entire timeline of the ark, of how long this flood actually happened for. And it's roughly about like 364 days, and I would say it's 364 to 371. And that's 7 days difference. And it depends on whether you count the 7 days earlier when they went, like the 7 days earlier before the rains came, where Noah was told put all the animals and stuff and get into the ark a week before. So it's anywhere from 364 to 371 days. Okay, so let's get into some of the numbers. So we could see in Genesis chapter, we just read in Genesis chapter 7, verse 11, it says that the water started on that day, and then it ended on Genesis chapter 8, verse 3, which says July 17th, which is 150 days of inundation. So already 150 days in the ark right there. Now, when you look at Genesis chapter 8, verse 5, it says that on the first day of the 10th month, which is October 1st, where the water recedes, where you can see the tops of the mountains, which is it says 70 days later, which means that now 150 plus 70 is 220 days have passed. Then you go to Genesis chapter 8, verse 6, which says 40 days later, Noah sends out birds, sends out a raven. And then after that, for 7 days another bird, and then another 7 days another bird. So there's another 14 days there on top of the 40. And then in Genesis chapter 8, verse 13, it says, on the first day of the first month, which is January 1st, Noah saw dry ground. And then in verse 14, it says, on the 27th day of the second month, February 27th, the ground was dry, right? So remember, it started on February 17th and ended on February 27th, which is like 360 days plus 10 days, which could be, it could be anywhere from 364 to 371, right? Which would be 360, 370. Yeah. So this could be like already there. It could be 371 if you go by February 27th, right? So scholars will say anywhere from 364 to 371. That's what it's going to say. But that's kind of the timeline of the inundate, like how long they were in the ark. 150 days of inundation, 70 days where the water recedes to, you can see the mountaintop. 40 days, then Noah sends out the first bird. Then 14 days of 2 more birds being sent out. And then Noah saw dry ground on January 1st. And then he was able to come out on February 27th, right? February 27th. So you're looking February 17th to February 27th, which is, and it's by calculation, and there's different calculations for other people. The one I'm showing you right now is 371 days, 371 days. Okay, so that's how you know how long they were in the ark. And remember, the calendar at that time was 30 days a month, right? So it's 360 days for the entire year, 12 times 30. And then, of course, if you're going by that, then it ends on February 27th, then you're going to say that it's going to be roughly 371 days. That's what it's going to be like, okay? So that's kind of the timeline of how long they were in the ark. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to Genesis chapter 9. Right, so in Genesis chapter 9, verse 1 and 2, we talked about that. That's the restarting of the purpose of creation. The 3 blessings are given to Noah once again. From verses 12 through 16, it's the sign of the rainbow. And basically, that's a covenant that God has made with human beings to never do the flood again, right? So now that we know it's a regional flood, the sign is that God will never wipe out an entire region again. It's not going to be the entire world, right? And we've seen all throughout history, there have been bad natural disasters, but entire regions have not been wiped out, okay? And the sign is the rainbow. You go to verse 20, 21, this is where Noah gets drunk and naked. And now what Sunseep said is, what happened what does it mean that Noah got drunk and naked? It basically means that he got drunk and he had relations with his wife. Sexual relations with his wife. Ham, his youngest son, saw this, looked down upon Noah. And the bad thing about this is he's no longer just his father, but now he is the central figure, the man of mission. And he looked down upon him, and he basically told his brothers, which basically means that he was kind of slandering the man of mission, the person that God sent, which is a huge sin. So verse 23, the brothers understood what happened, and they covered his father's nakedness, and they didn't even look at their father. They didn't want to have any bad thoughts about their father too. And in the end, Ham is cursed and becomes the reason why history breaks again for another 400 years of silence, right? So 400 more years until Abraham comes. There is no communication between God and mankind, right? So that's what actually happens there. So we all know that Ham is the youngest son, and he went against the man of God, slandered the man of God, right? Which is like, why is this so bad? Because a lot of people would say Noah did what was wrong because he was drunk and he was naked. Now, remember, the only person that is perfect is the Messiah. The only person who's going to be without sin is the Messiah. So what does that mean? It basically means that all of the central figures on the way and before Jesus could not be perfect. They all had their special skills. Noah was obedient, right? And, like Moses had leadership. Joshua had bravery and courage kind of thing, right? So they basically had their set roles. Samson had great strength. So there were central figures, but they were not the Messiah. They had their great roles, right? That they had, which was part of God's will, to fulfill God's will and his history. Now, Ham, basically, the reason why he was considered doing worse than Noah did exactly what God told him to do, right? At this time, there was no Moses, there's no 10 Commandments, there's not all these laws and rules that we know either, right? So it's very, very different, right? So what we know here is is that this is even before the law was given by Moses, right? The 613 laws. So Noah did exactly what God did, but his son actually did wrong by going against the man of mission of the time period, right? And because of that, history was broken once again. All right? So there it is, guys. That is Genesis. We went all the way up to chapter 9. Chapter 9. All right? If you have any questions about any of these things, go ahead, leave them in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Yes, Chris Jansen told me that at this rate, I should be going through the entire Bible within 10 years. Yeah. So who knows? Let's see what happens here. Okay. So that is today's Bible history word study. If you have any questions or any other questions about the things we've gone over from Genesis chapter 1 through 9, just go ahead, put them in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you guys think about that too. Okay. So, before we get into the final section today, which is health is happiness, I hope you guys will enjoy the second break of the day. Okay, so there it is. That is today's song of the day. That is AG from Japan. This is called Sounds of Music. You can find it on SoundCloud, right? So let's get into our final segment for today. And of course, today's Wednesday, right? Every Wednesday we do have Health is Happiness, and we do have the final segment in the series, and this is from Julius Miyumo, and this is about longevity, and he's going to talk about skin and hair, all right? So everyone all the way over from Australia, this is a replay, but I hope you guys will enjoy this even more. This is Julius Miyumo with Health is Happiness.
Hi everyone, Julius here, and welcome to the Health is Happiness segment. This is episode 24, and today we're going to do the third and final part of the longevity series. So the focus today is going to be on how to slow down the aging of our hair and skin. Most of the things I have discussed in part 1 and 2 will definitely help with this, especially your skin. Now, one of the things about those particular strategies that I've previously discussed is that it really helps in maintaining a healthy liver, which is key to having healthy skin. But today, I want to talk more about the things that are more specific to the hair and skin. Protecting the skin is much more important than just looking good. The skin is the first line of protection against pathogens, viruses, and other sorts of things. So it's important to have healthy skin. So far, I think many people already know that smoking, processed food, and alcohol are known to accelerate the aging of your skin. So I'm not really going to address those points. I will focus on other things. The first thing I will talk about is sun exposure. Particularly in Western culture, there is a huge culture of tanning. And a lot of times, people are not really conscious as much as they should be about their sun exposure. Getting sufficient sunlight is important for vitamin D. But you can overwhelm your system. And of course, the clearest example of this is you getting sunburned. The thing about sun exposure is that it's not about how hot the sun is. And you don't really need to get to the point of getting sunburned. You've gone way overboard at that point. The issue is the amount of UV exposure. And how hot the sun feels on your skin is not related at all to the intensity of UV. On a cloudy day, UV can still be very high. When the UV hits the molecules in the skin, it causes certain letters in the DNA to fuse, so the enzymes that reads the DNA can no longer do so properly, thus accelerating the aging of your skin. And it also increases the chances of mutations into melanoma or skin cancer. Of course, I'm talking about having excessive UV exposure. UV is usually highest in the middle of the day during summer. It's important to check the UV readings for your country, wherever you're living, over different seasons as well. Depending on that, you may need to use sunscreen regularly. Places like Australia, New Zealand, and northwestern Europe tend to have the highest skin cancer rate in that order. UV readings get quite extreme in the summer in these places, as well as countries also that are close to the equator. Any reading above a UV index of 5 is quite high. There are many days in Australian summer where the readings reach above 10. So if you want to preserve the youth of your skin, monitor the UV readings in your area and be sure to apply sunscreen during the seasons when it's required. Another important fact to know is that the less melanin in your skin, the higher the vulnerability of your skin to sun damage and premature aging from UV radiation. Nonetheless, everyone is still at risk of skin cancer despite how dark your skin is when it's constantly exposed to high UV rays. So everyone should still use sunscreen when UV radiation is quite high. Next thing I'm going to talk about is collagen and vitamin C. As we get older, our body does not produce as much collagen, which is an essential building block for our joints, skin, hair, and nails. As to whether ingesting it is better than using the skin products, It wasn't clear to me from the research. But Sunsinim did say for honey that eating it is 70% effective and applying it externally is 30% effective. From my perspective, I would apply the same reasoning for collagen. Both are beneficial, but to different degrees. Personally for me, I take the ingestible form of collagen. I take this as a supplement for my joints when I train in the gym, as well as for my hair. And personally, I saw an immediate difference in the quality of my skin just over 2 days. And my hair was much more fuller and thicker and stronger. Even other people told me that my skin looked very shiny, so it just wasn't me. Now, I've never tried this skin cream, so I can't really give much opinion on that. There are actually many different types of collagen, but the most talked about are type 1, type 2, and type 3. Type 1 collagen and type 3 collagen are usually grouped together because they're the most abundant and have similar bodily functions. Both can be sourced from bovine collagen. The two make up 90% of the total collagen in the human body and are key in the maintenance of your skin, hair, bones, and muscles. More specifically, type 1 collagen can be found almost anywhere in the body except cartilaginous tissues. In fact, type 1 collagen itself makes up 70% of your skin. This type of collagen is particularly helpful in enhancing the skin and helping to reverse the aging process of the skin. On the other hand, you can find type 3 collagen in hollow organs like your artery walls. Both types are rich in amino acids, glycine, proline, and glutamine, which all serve their own key functions in the body, including blocking endotoxins or acting as an antioxidant. Finally, there's type 2 collagen, which can be found in cartilage. They make up around 50% to 60% of all cartilage protein. So they're quite useful in supporting your joints and cartilage. If you have weak knees, for example, type 2 collagen might prove useful. Now, the type of collagen I bought was called hydrolyzed collagen peptides. This form of collagen has been broken down to become more fully digestible and absorbed by the body. It is made with type 1 and type 3 collagen. The collagen powder brand that I got was really high quality, which is very important to consider when picking your collagen. It wasn't a proprietary protein blend where they tend to mix in other cheaper, lower quality protein sources and dilute the ratio of the main ingredient. It was a pure type 1 and type 3 collagen. In addition to this, vitamin C is often also added to such collagen supplements because it's absolutely essential for the synthesis of collagen in the body. So that's also something that I take together separately with the collagen powder. Now, high quality collagen powder can be a little bit expensive, I would say, in comparison to just regular protein powder. So I would advise actually not using a full scoop. In fact, it's not really necessary. Mine cost about 50 Australian dollars, and that was for 750 grams. Using something like a quarter or half a scoop was enough for me to see significant changes in my skin and hair. Now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is retin A and resveratrol. These are two ingredients that Dr. David Sinclair found were being used in cosmetic ingredients much more increasingly. He explained that resveratrol was probably being used because it was turning on situatin activity in the skin, which then turns on antioxidant enzymes and a lot of other good things such as revving up metabolism, increasing blood flow, and getting more oxygenation in the tissues as well. If you recall from the previous episode, situatins turn up the body's defenses, which increases longevity in simple terms. So for this reason, he thought that resveratrol is a really great component to look for in a cosmetic. Now, as for retin A, he said that it was one of the most important ingredients in protecting fine lines and wrinkles. It is used as a defense against acne and increases downstream collagen production and promotes keratin, which is an important component of the outer layer of your skin, hair, and nails. A very important caveat that he mentioned was that there was not enough research on the long-term effects of vitamin A. Sorry, I mispronounced that. So, Dr. David Sinclair doesn't use it every day. He uses it on and off. So for that reason, I would consult your doctor if you are curious about it. So there you have it. That's the final part for this topic on longevity. In this 3-part series, we have talked about intermittent fasting, eating a mostly plant-based diet and less meat, as well as strategies for preserving skin and hair by using collagen and sunscreen protection. Hopefully that helps everyone to increase their longevity in one way or another. If you'd like me to elaborate on any particular points, please drop a comment below. Now the next topic of Health is Happiness will be on workouts and sports supplements. And I think this will be very useful for a lot of guys. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.
And thank you so much, Julius, for another wonderful episode of Health is Happiness. I know these are replays, but these are very, very important. And of course, if you forget, you will die. And we need to be reminded of these each and every week too. Okay, so there it is, guys. That is today's Wednesday podcast. Hope you guys super enjoyed it just as much as I had. And I hope that you guys have an amazing Wednesday service tonight. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone.